and welcome back to the NAS Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another collection update video, which of course, if you had seen my Unearthed Mail video in there, I definitely had a hint or said that I was definitely going to do one, and it was going to be all vinyl. Well, that's what I'm doing here. And of course, the bulk of some of these records anyways came from that Unearthed video, or Unearthed Mail video. So, before I get into that, let's get into what's playing in the background. Hadn't listened to this one in a while. That's what I was about to say. Chastain's Rule of the Wasteland. Great album. This is, of course, the only Chastain album that I actually own, but I have, of course, listened to the other Chastain albums. Of course, I reviewed most of those albums anyways as part of my US Power Metal Month from back in 2016. Just a great album, and felt like spinning it for this video. Great album. Actually, we would kind of see about this. Okay. You know, you're not even fucking seeing it. Doesn't matter. What the fuck? Weird. Alright, definitely kind of odd way of starting off this video. Of course, the record can end up ending. Who knows? But you know, I'll just let things go. Alright, but first, before I get into any of the stuff that came in that Unearthed Mail video, which of course was from Bipbopboom, I'm going to get into the records I ended up buying last week. Last week at Recycled Records. A couple of weeks ago anyway, or 2 weeks ago from Recycled Records in Reno. Which, of course, I hadn't been there in a while, and definitely picked up some stuff. Of course, I played this one in that video, of course, my Unearthed Mail. Of course, is The Brood, which, of course, the band would go on to be known as Uncle Slam. But this was our very first album, released in 1986. Of course, on the standard Profile Records label there. Of course, there is the back. This is actually a really good album. Very much. Where's the? Okay. This is actually a really good album. Very more on. It's like it has that sort of crossover thrash sound to it, but not in the sense that you'd expect, like SOD or DRI or something like that. It's not real too much like that. Sure, there are suicidal tendencies in the sound. But the more I re-listen to this album, the more I listen to it, I get more like a zoetrope kind of thing going on with this one. Of course, there is that obvious Motorhead influence as well in here. This is definitely more street metal. Just real good record. Pretty much almost every song on here is fucking good, actually. There really isn't a bad song on here. Even some of the more hardcore punk influenced songs are actually pretty damn enjoyable. This is definitely a great album. I do really like this one. So, of course, I may have to start checking out some of their stuff as Uncle Slam if it's as any good as this. Great album. Alright, here's the next one up. Here's, of course, is the debut from Canadian rockers White Wolf. This, of course, is their debut, Standing Alone. And, of course, here's the band picture, inner, and of course, it's on the standard RCA Victor label. You know what? And of course there is the back right there. You know what? I really gotta say, this isn't bad of an album. This isn't very bad. Normally, the album itself, it has almost a... At times, when it comes to AOR, I'm not a big fan. But there are definitely exceptions, and we'll get to some other exceptions. But for some reason, this one just really ended up clicking with me. Even some of the real cheesy parts of some of this, I ended up actually somewhat more enjoying. It's definitely keyboard laced, even though there are definitely some decent enough speed rockers on this album, you know, like the song Headlines, Trust Me, and of course there's the song Homeward Bound, which is probably one of the best songs off this album if you ask me. It's just has a real good hook to it. Very more so, kind of reminds me of like 80s Kiss, but if anything, this is actually better than anything that came out of the Kiss camp in the 1980s. Especially anything what better off of Lick It Up. But this is definitely not a bad album. Sure, it's not going to be for everyone. If you want something heavy that came out of Canada, it's not one of them. But I don't think that it's really that bad of an album. I actually somewhat enjoy this. Even some of the stuff like What the War Will Bring kind of almost has almost a Blue Oyster Cult feel to it. Like think more like the 80s albums, like Club Ninja or Revelation by Night or Imaginos. But in that regard, it's not too bad. It's definitely has that commercial feel, but compared to a lot of them, this is a little more ambitious. So, I actually don't think this is that bad of an album. Even compared to, like, what, Loverboy, this is better than that. So, White Wolf, Standing Alone, actually a decent rock album. And I prefer that for some reason even over the first two Bon Jovi albums. It's just better than some of that. Alright, next up, of course in that video, I mentioned that I picked up a Crocus album. Of course, it is Pain and Metal, which is, of course, their third album and last one to feature the changing lineup before they got the steady lineup of Mark Storace on vocals. There's, of course, the cover. It's on a standard Mercury Burning label. Of course, there's the back. You know what? This really isn't a bad album. I once listened to this one on YouTube to see if it was really any good, and the only songs that really had clicked with me at that time was the first two tracks, being Killer and Werewolf. But since re-giving it a listen, this is actually a really good album. I'm also failing to mention that this is a 1985 reissue, and it was in great shape when I picked it up. I once ran across a copy at Spinner's Record Stand in Fresno, California, but I don't think it was, I can't recall if it was any better or worse, but this is definitely a really good copy, great shape, but again, not a bad album. I ended up really enjoying most of this album, second time, being of course Killer, Werewolf, Rock Ladies, which kind of almost has like a Coverdale era Deep Purple sound to it. Really good, actually. And of course, Get On My Mind's not too bad. And of course, on side 2, we got Rock Me, Rock You, Deadline, which is definitely one of the more fastest songs on this one. And of course, Pay It and Bye Bye Baby. Both Pay It and Bye Bye Baby definitely have, definitely show signs of their classic Crocus sound from the 1980s. Especially a song like Pay It would have not been too far off of being on albums such as Hardware or One Vice at a Time. I could just imagine those being sung by Mark Storace, because here it's being sung by before their bass player, who is of course taking vocals in on their first two, which I still have yet to come across copies of, especially that first album. Both being sung by, even at that time, was their drummer, then vocalist, and then bass player. So, all in all, this is actually a good album. I actually dig this one. Pain and Metal, of course, in other countries we would call Painkiller, and it had 4 different covers. Alright, Last record I picked up at Recycled Records is, of course, an album I was actually a little more surprised to even come by. This is not an easy album to come by in the wild for me. That, of course, is Mantis with Winds of Change, which, of course, was formed by then ex-Venom guitar player Jeff Mantis Dunn. Thus, why they were called Mantis. This was a solo band. Of course, he still is with Venom, but not the Venom, not with Kronos. Both, of course, is Venom Inc., with, of course, which was the Tony Dolan era of Venom. But here, got the front cover there, back cover. Of course, here is the inner. And of course, it's on the Neat Records label, even though this is a Roadrunner pressing, which is even more shocking. There's that, which of course is in this peach color. Yeah. You know what? When I first listened to this album years ago, actually, it was only the first track off the Vibrations of Doom classic album section. It definitely threw me off guard. It definitely is not Venom for any means. It's not, you know, Welcome to Hell or Blackmail, which, of course, if any indication, that back cover. Look at that. I don't know what if it was trying to mostly compete with Venom at that time, because then they put out that Calm Before the Storm album, which was kind of considered their turbo. It was, but that, or I guess he was really kind of proved the doubters that said that he was a shitty guitar player because of Venom and everything. So he had to kind of prove them that he actually is a decent enough guitar player. It's definitely not a bad album. It's definitely keyboard laced for sure, but musically, it's not like the White Wolf. It's more so, almost kind of a shrapnel metal feel to it. So it's very more shred based. And while it's not bad in any means, I don't think it's very fantastic. I've seen some people say that this is a fantastic album, and I've seen some people say that this is not a very good album. Me, I'm like somewhere in the middle. It's not a bad album, but it's not a great album. It's definitely an interesting piece for sure, especially the interesting piece within that sort of career of Venom. But it's definitely not. I'd say this is one of his finest works as well. Like, if you want some of the most finest works from Jeff Dunn, it's definitely the stuff at Venom, or even some of the Tony Dolan era stuff of Venom is actually not too bad. Even some of the songs off of the Venom Inc. album, Ave, which is actually not pretty bad at all. I did a review for Ave, but this is definitely not bad. Not fantastic, but it ain't a bad album at all. So, Mantis, Winds of Change, the Roadrunner pressing, which is very tough. I can't believe I even came across this album, and I can't believe it was even a Roadrunner pressing. They're very tough to come by, because most of the Roadrunner pressings from the 1980s were only released in the Netherlands, or in Europe. So the come by one in the United States is definitely a snag for me. But Mantis with, of course, Winds of Change. Well, gotta switch the record here. Put this. I don't know if I'm gonna throw that record on. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. Because certainly, this is actually a way better album than that one. This one is Chastain. Alright. Doing for time, 15 minutes, alright. Let's definitely get this moving. Alright, finally, that was it. That was pretty much the last, like, again, of the stuff that I bought at Recycled Records in Reno. So I'm on to the stuff that was part of a VCLT from Bipbopboom. Of course, coming up here is, of course, Crocus with, of course, the School's Out 12-inch single, which, of course, is a promotional copy. So we got cover there, back cover, and of course, standard Arista label. What can I say? It's, of course, is a single for from the Change of Address album, which, if you've ever heard me in comments for whenever people have showed that album, it's not that good of an album. It's not the best thing at all from Crocus. If anything, Pay It in Metal, this record right here, from 1978, is way better than anything off a Change of Address. But again, of course, it's a Alice Cooper cover. Them pretty much trying to recapture another cover, kind of like what they did with the Ballroom Blitz cover by The Sweet on the Blitz album. Yeah, though not bad. Definitely not bad to have. I'm not, complaining or anything. It's just that it's not gonna be one of those go-to listings for Crocus. Again, Pay It in Metal will be the one if I have to. But at this point, I'm still trying to grab as much Crocus as I do over there. So that's it for that record. Next up, of course, is Judas Priest with, of course, Unleashed in the East. Of course, front cover, back cover, and of course, on the standard Columbia label. I don't think I have to say anything. It's just a classic album for sure. The only thing I can say is I think this could be a promotional copy because of the holes. Little punch holes there. So, and I've tried looking up on this copy very much on Discogs to see if I can find it. But it doesn't seem I can never find a copy that has these punch holes. So I don't know what particular copy this is, other than whatever. But still, classic album. Anyone has never listened to this album, you should definitely stop this video and just listen to it. Next up here is, of course, end up finally getting from him, vinyl copy of course, Virus's Force Recon. It's probably still their best sound they've ever recorded. But there's the front cover, back cover, of course on the Combat Metalworks label. Of course, there's the sleeve there, the inner. Of course, it's on the standard Camouflage Combat label. Great album again. I don't think I have to say anything more about this. This is just a classic British thrash metal album for me. I just love this album. The raw intensity of it. It's a little sloppy, but for some reason, I can stand that sense for listening out, such as Obsessed by Cruelty by Sodom. Though this is definitely nothing like Sodom, but in terms of just the same sort of feel that you kind of get from like Obsessed by Cruelty, it's kind of the same thing, but still, great album. Love it from beginning to end. Of course, I've had a cassette copy of the sound for the longest, so to really upgrade to a vinyl copy of the album is just amazing. Great album. Alright, next up, of course, an album I've had on CD, which of course is Oz's Fire in the Brain. I've got my CD copy out anyways. So, talk about just big badassery. Of course, there's the cover there, front, back. Of course, on the standard Combat Green label. which of course indicates that it's an earlier release. From Combat, anything later is going to have the camouflage label. So there's that. Again, just like with Judas Priest or the Virus, I don't have to say anything really more. It's just a classic heavy metal album. Just fucking classic. I don't need to say anything more. Love this record from start to finish. Ah, shit. Ugh. Just great. Again, Fire in the Brain by Oz. Alright, next up. This was definitely a record that I was so surprised that that Bipbopboom pretty much lended me. Of course, it's the Metal Clogs compilation from Rave On Records. Definitely one of those real sought-after records of finding. Even though I could get a copy off of Discogs, but it would probably cost me about 30 or 40 bucks. But yeah, this is great. Great compilation, actually. Of course, featured bands like Crossfire, Frankenstein, Impact, and of course Gilgamesh. So here's the front cover, back cover, and of course, here is of course the Rave On Records label. Of course, Rave On is best known for releasing the debut Merciful Fate EP, and of course, be very funny. It was the second thing they released, because the first thing was this comp, and again, just great. The Crossfire tracks I just love. For a fact is, it should not be any secret that I really like that band. I actually like Crossfire quite a bit. I like Second Attack and See You in Hell. And the Sharpshooter EP or LP, whatever. I love that. So this is definitely great to have. But of course, I like some of the other tracks on here. I like the Frankenstein tracks, the Impact tracks, and the everything. It's all just a complete great rocker of an LP. Very more on the new wave of British heavy metal side for the most part, because it's definitely their answer to like some of the neat records, comps, and everything. So it's great LP. Also, I do want to kind of point out that there is actually several different pressings of this LP from what I've heard. There's a pressing that's just black and blue, black and white, and then of course there's blue and white. I've never seen the blue and white one, so that's why when I first saw this, when I opened up that package, I was just like, it took me off guard for a bit, even though I knew what it was, but I was so kind of by the coloring. Because I always saw the black and white copy of the album online. So, I don't know. Is this the rare copy of the album? You know what? Either way, it's just real great to have it. Trying to speed things up here. And of course, like at the White Wolf, when I had mentioned that when it came to AOR, this is definitely an exception. Another one that I've ended up actually liking. Of course, again, from him is Bronze, Taken by Storm. This, of course, is the U.S. pressing, of course. So here we got the front cover, back cover, which of course turns out this is a gold stamp promo copy of the album. Right there. Got that. Of course, here's the inner here. Of course, showing all the albums on bronze, mostly of the Motorhead stuff. Of course, in the back there at the Uriah Heep stuff there. Of course, here is the standard bronze label. Definitely, again, even though these guys are a part of the new wave of British heavy metal movement, this sound being their first, definitely more on the hard rock, AOR kind of thing, kind of sound. And while I didn't know what to really expect from that, because when I first heard reviews or whatever about it, I didn't know if it was going to be any good. And I've heard some, I know I've seen some people show this record, talk about it and stuff, and I don't know if it was going to be any good to begin with. Of course, given the fact that got this cover right there, which you think is going to be, new wave of British heavy metal, it definitely turns out it's a little bit more so like either Foreigner or Styx. But that's only for about 2 or 3 songs on the album. For the most part, it definitely does have a bit of a heaviness to it. There is definitely some British metal numbers on here, being, of course, Loneliness Is Mine, the song Taken by Force, and Night Runner. But it's really not a bad album. I didn't expect to really like this one as much as I did. Like, this is actually not bad. Given it as a hard rock or AOR album, this is better than, like, again, same thing goes for the White Wolf. Those two albums, they're some of the better AOR albums to come out in the 1980s and what was really getting churned out by almost every fucking label that ever, and everything on, like, MTV. So, I actually dug this. So, with that, this is actually not a bad album. So, Bronze, Taken by Storm. Next up here, of course, these last two. Of course, Stars, Coliseum Rock, LA hard rock band. Again, so, front cover, back cover, inner sleeve, pretty much same there, but it's on custom Capitol labels. So, of course, there's this is a great album. This is a great 70s hard rock album. Killer record. There really isn't anything bad on this sound. This is just freaking great 70s hard rock. I haven't get this back in there, but this is just great. When it comes to LA, like punk rock or hard rock or some of that stuff, this is actually really fucking good, actually. I really enjoyed this one. Just, there really isn't anything bad on here. Some parts actually really goes into more British, hard and heavy territory. Especially, kind of reminded me a little bit of UFO or Scorpions. Especially with the song, Coliseum Rock, and of course, that and It's a Riot. Both songs, especially the Coliseum Rock, some of the guitar stuff right there almost reminded me of the song, Polar Nights by Scorpions. It's like, I almost made me think like it's really John Roth playing on this album. This is great. Great album. Really enjoyed this one. Alright, last album up here is, of course, Uriah Heep's Innocent Victim. Of course, this being a promotional copy of the album, thus why the cover is different than the usual Snake cover. So we got that. Back cover, and of course it's on the standard Palm Tree Warner Brothers label. This is not a bad album, but this is definitely not one of Uriah Heep's best. The only song on this album that's definitely killer is the song Free and Easy. Just real great, ripping, early proto-metal. Just great, just a great song. But for the most part, the sound is a little bit more tame. It's very just moody kind of stuff. And given the fact that you got singer John Lawton, who of course was from the band Lucifer's Friend, but it's definitely not a bad album, but it's not even some of the best work from Uriah Heep. Though definitely albums like before this one, like Demons and Wizards or Sweet Freedom, are just great albums. This one's not bad, but again, it's too tame and to some extent. It's like you could tell that they were really trying to gain some radio attention with some of this, really more. Of course, it was like 1977, but I don't know, could I say this is their Stormbringer? I don't know. But it's definitely not a bad album, but definitely not the best from Uriah Heep, for sure. With that, that was it. That was my vinyl update there. Definitely kind of long, of course, 29 minutes. So with that, hope you enjoyed. And I might do a announcement video here soon. Who knows when, but I will. And it will be about a certain series. So until then, this is Special Sam out. I'll see you later. Take care, everyone.